about to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's go, let's be free with me. Be free. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our latest A-Level Politics. Got the right subject. A-Level Politics revision session, and this one's an exciting one. I can't think of a more exciting topic that we can use with our politics teacher live lounge with Kieran Duncan. It's the UK Constitution team. How excited are we about that?
Hello. Great fun.
That's it. Big
stuff.
it up, Dunks. I would.
It's great stuff. Yeah.
No, well,
Okay,
welcome. So, I mean, Duncan, do you want to just tell us a bit about how this session is going to unfurl in terms of how the chat window works, and then when we're ready, we'll crack on because we've got lots to get through in this session, haven't we?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got lots of activities all about the UK Constitution, different aspects of that. We'd like you to engage with it in the chat window. If you haven't been with us before, that's how we'd like you to do it. So first up, there's some multiple choice questions. So for that, it would just be A, B, C, or D in the chat window. Later on, we might ask you to do a few other things, have a little go, a few other things. But let's crack on. Let's make a start with some multiple choice questions. I'm going to hand over to Kira.
Cool, thanks, Duncan. So let's start with one of the first multiple choice questions then. So you just put your answer in the chat, A, B, C, or D. So the first one is, when was the Recall Act, which allowed constituents to remove their MPs? So very important act, which meant that if constituents were unhappy with their MPs, they were able to remove them. Oh, some mixed answers, but I can see that a majority of people are getting it right. So the correct answer is then A, 2015. So especially kind of came about after the expenses scandal. People were unhappy with the way that their MPs had handled that. So it was a good way to kind of be able to remove them. So the next question. So when was the Right Committee established? And this committee is important because it improved the relevance and the procedures of Parliament. So when was this established? A, B, C, or D? So starting us off with some nice constitutional reform. Good, seeing some people are getting this right already. Excellent. Brilliant. Most of you seem to get this. There's a bit of confusion between sort of C and D, but the correct answer is D, 2009. So well done to most of you. Okay, so the next question is, when was the Human Rights Act passed, bringing the European Convention of Human Rights into UK law? So importantly, even after, well, now that Britain has left the EU, we will still be protected by the European Convention of Human Rights because it predates our membership of the European Union. Okay, good, fantastic. Most of you getting this right. So the correct answer, as all of you have gotten, brilliant, is B. But actually, there's something relevant to do with D as well, 2000. How could it be linked to the year 2000? Wonder if anybody knows the answer to that one.
Shall we keep an eye out in the chat window, see if anyone posts it in as we carry on? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll carry on. Good idea. Cool. Yeah. So the next question is, so when was the Freedom of Information Act passed? So again, another important law for increasing rights and freedoms in Britain because it allowed public access to documents held by public authorities, although the government can still refuse some certain documents as well, though. So Rachel seems to have gotten that question right. So did other people earlier on. So the earlier question was 2000 because that's when the human rights was enacted. Well done. And looking at this answer, again, fantastic answers, everybody. The correct answer for the Freedom of Information Act was B, the year 2000. So well done. Okay, and the next question is, so this one's quite an interesting one. When was the Constitutional Reform Act passed? So this was an important law that was passed, which established many things, including a Supreme Court. So essentially removing some of the power away from the executive and giving it to the Supreme Court to be able to have more checks and balances on our executive. And absolutely fantastic. So most of you are getting this right. The correct answer is indeed D, 2005. So well done. It's a great trip if you ever get into London again to go and visit the Supreme Court. It's free. You can just walk in. I recommend it. So the next question. When was the Scotland Act, which established the Scottish Parliament, passed? A, B, C, or D? So this was for devolution, creating a Scottish Parliament. And well done. Most of you are getting this right. I'm often caught good. So correct answer is A, 1998. That was me reading that, not me saying that. Okay, so on to the next task, set of questions for Duncan then.
Okay, thanks very much. Well done, everyone, with your answers for there. Some really good answers. I noticed a couple of people going for B for that last one. And of course, that was when the referendum took place, and then the act to establish it took place in 98. Okay, we've got some key terms from the Constitution topic now, which I'd like you to work out what they are in a sort of, I don't know if anyone's seen Only Connect, but they do this thing where they take out the vowels. You can work out the key term. Loads of people have spotted this one, that it is parliamentary sovereignty, but it would be quite cool if someone could type a very brief definition in the chat window as well. And as we go through the other terms in this little activity, if you could do the same, work out what the term is, but also if a couple of you could suggest what it means, that'd be great. Okay, shall we have a look at check that it's right. It's definitely parliamentary sovereignty. Well done, it is. And they do get heard. Okay, so Parliament rules all primacy of Parliament has sovereignty over the UK, supreme legal authority. Well done, lots of you. Defining parliamentary sovereignty in a very nice, concise way. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Rufflua. Anyone got this one? Loads of good definitions of parliamentary sovereignty coming up, by the way. That's really good. But do we know what key term is being discussed? All those of you coming all through here. Rule of law, rule of law, rule of law. Again, anyone want to define what the rule of law is? Lots of you saying you knew it was the rule of law, and well done, it was. We got a no one is above the law. Thanks, Isaac. Well done. There was a cascade of answers. It was very good. Well done. Yeah, no one is above the law. Very good. Next one. What do we think this one could be? Another key term from this topic. You might want to give an example of one, perhaps. Oh, yes, a few people are getting the answer. Spotted what it is. Thanks, Rachel, Richard, Skiz, Small Sophie, and loads of others now. It is judicial review. Have we got either a definition or an example that we could give? Just keep an eye on the chat window, see if anyone suggests a brief definition, maybe an example of it. There was, looking into Boris Johnson's proroguing of Parliament, good example, and it is a procedure by which a court can review an administrative action by a public body. And well done for spotting in the UK and in England, very, very accurate. And obviously you can make comparisons with the US and the differences between it. Oh, a declaration of incompatibility, that's very good. And yeah, some examples coming up in there, really good. Okay, shall we have a look at the next one? What do we think this is? Oh, we've got some more examples coming in, so just keep an eye on the chat window for examples. It's really good. Not legally binding. Because of parliamentary sovereignty. Lots of people coming up there with West Lothian question. West Lothian question, which is a question asked by Tam DL, who was the MP for West Lothian. Can anyone very briefly explain what the West Lothian question was? What was the question, or what was the problem that Tam DL identified? Issues surrounding English devolution, yes. What was the issue principally? In no more than 500 words, yeah, absolutely. It's not a quick one. It's not a quick one. Never heard of it. It's an interesting concept. It was a question. Yes, Scottish votes on British problems. Someone's pointed out. So it was this an anomaly in the idea of devolution, that if you had kind of asynchronous devolution, or some parts of the country having devolution and others not, then you'd have this odd situation where you might have legislation that only affects England, and Scottish MPs get to vote on it. And a few people are talking about some of the potential solutions for that as well, coming in the chat window. Some really, really good stuff. Don't worry if you haven't heard the name of the question. You'll know about the concepts and the issues surrounding it. It's all to do with devolution and things, but it is a good example that you can use, or a good problem that you could talk about. But don't worry if it's if you haven't encountered the precise words, but have a look at it. It's good. Okay, shall we? Last one of these, and because we've been talking about a particular topic, I suspect it will now be you may spot it quite quickly. Devolution, yeah, everyone's got a massive cascade of devolution, and I think we've probably talked about it enough for not to need a definition. But if anyone wants to type in a really punchy, succinct definition of devolution, they can do. Otherwise, I think we should transfer of power to a local level. Well, there's some great definitions coming through. Let's pass over to Kieran now for a timeline.
Cool, thank you. It was interesting seeing people mentioning evil as well as the solution to it, and what an unfortunate choice of name or for to solve it. So there's many components to our uncodified constitution. So we do have a constitution, it's just unwritten. So that you've got statute law, common law, conventions, but also historical documents. So Britain has a very organic constitution. It's an evolutionary constitution. So it's important to kind of understand the order of some of those key documents. So what you're going to do is, I've got some dates there and some key historical documents on the right. So just write down in order in the chat. So what's the correct order that these should be in when we're thinking about the timeline of historical documents?
Some good answers coming in already, aren't there?
Yeah, we're getting some good ones here, yeah. Well done. Got quite well done, Lily. Great answers so far. Okay, so you've got like really important documents here. So I think the way that the British Constitution has evolved is incredibly interesting, and it comes from one of the most sort of groundbreaking democratic governments around the documents around the world, which is obviously starting with the Magna Carta. So let's show you the answers and see how you did then. Interestingly, Churchill wanted America to join the Second World War before they joined, and he actually was going to give the Americans a copy of the Magna Carta. There's a few copies that still survive, but it's such a historically significant document for democracy that he thought that that would sweeten the deal in terms of America joining, but Parliament said no. So you've got the list of the answers there. So 1215 is Magna Carta, one of the first documents. And then we've got things like the Bill of Rights, which was about more sort of religious freedom after the Civil War. And also the Parliament Act, incredibly important as well. And I think most of you got these right, so well done for knowing your history and politics, which is really good. Okay, so
Kira, where was the Magna Carta signed?
I'm going to say Runnymede, but I feel like there's
at the bottom. At
the bottom.
Okay, right. It was Runnymede, of course. Yeah. Okay. Right. Thanks, Kira. Okay. I think as if everyone's got their answers for that, the next activity is called Get the Balance Right. We're going to look at some advantages and disadvantages of the UK Constitution being uncodified, as Kira was just mentioning. Then, so can we start with some advantages? Can you think of any advantages to having an uncodified constitution? What do we reckon? I've just noticed Craig from our sociology team who didn't appreciate the Magna Carta joke. That's a shame.
It was a cracking joke. It was brilliant.
Okay, we've got that it's flexible, easily adaptable, evolutionary. Lots of people saying it's flexible, fluid, can respond to events. The Firearms Act in 1997, excellent example. Especially if you're making a sort of comparison with the US. Okay, able to change with the times, lack of constraints, can stand the test of time, keeps up with the time. Okay, so we've got lots on the kind of flexible side of things. Can we think of other bits? Oh, non-judiciable. Judiciable. Can we think of why is that an advantage? Some good points there. No special process for amendment. I suppose we could argue whether that's an advantage or a disadvantage, but there's lots and lots of good stuff there, mostly focusing on flexibility, but also about the role of judges. So I think you've come up with very similar advantages to the ones we did. If we just have a quick look, flexible, avoids the tyranny of the judiciary, which was kind of the point that you were making about the role of judges. Okay, can we think of some disadvantages to having an uncodified constitution? Why might it be better to have a codified one? It's not fixed, so MPs or judges can manipulate it to their advantage. Okay. It's not clear enough. Thanks, Neve. Doesn't protect the right of citizens as well as codified constitutions do. Yeah, okay. It's unclear to people, easily abused because it's flexible. So we had flexibility as an advantage, but is it too flexible? Lack of rights protection. Lots of good points there. Too much down to interpretation. Leads to a dominant executive. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Perhaps it doesn't restrict what governments can do enough. Powers too concentrated. Tyranny of the majority. Loads of really interesting answers there. We just put a couple on, but you've come up with those ones and others as well. So it's too easy to change, perhaps. Citizens' rights aren't entrenched. But also, excellent suggestions that you've put in there as well, particularly about the limitations of power or lack of limitations on executive power. Really good. I'm really impressed with how you've engaged with that activity. I'm going to pass back to Kira now.
Okay, so what I want us to think about are three of the elements of the Constitution and try to think, how do we categorize each of them? So you've got statute law, common law, and conventions. So what I want to do is give you 60 seconds where you can kind of put the correct statements into the correct categories. So what out of those is statute, common, or conventions? So you have 60 seconds to do that. And let's see how many of these you get right.
So you might want to write statute, and then there you go. Tutor to you is giving you the example, not necessarily the right answer, but the example of how to answer.
All looking good there, Ben?
It is a bit
Some
like
good
the
answers.
MasterChef music, isn't it? High tension.
Yeah, very intense. Got to get these categories right. Your A levels at stake. Good on conventions. Go on,
I've
sorry.
seen quite a few answers. I was going to say I've seen quite a few answers for statute and conventions. Just getting some coming through for common and case law now. I was just going to say because we've run out of time, but I just wanted to see a few answers on. Oh yeah, some a few coming through now, aren't there?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think common law is actually a bit of a strange one, that how much dominance it has in our constitution. So I'll show you the answers, and I can talk through that a bit actually. So when we're thinking about common law, then seems like we're coming through on that actually a bit better now. So well done, Olivia.
Yeah,
You
some
got that
good
one
answers.
right. Cool. So you can see, so with common law is based on the judicial precedent. So previous things that had been passed by the courts. So for example, if we're looking at even the idea of murder being unlawful, being something that's wrong and you shouldn't do, wasn't passed by Parliament, it was passed by the courts. And because it was passed by the courts, it's got the precedence, and it's why we don't do it. And obviously because it'd be really bad to kill someone. So with statute law then, so statute law is law that is passed by Parliament then, so it goes through the Commons process. So things like the Constitutional Reform Act, the Human Rights Act, those are all part of statute law. And then conventions is the interesting part of our constitution, I think, because when we're thinking about conventions, it's essentially traditions and customs. So we don't need specific laws on certain things like the Prime Minister resigning if they lose an election, because they're likely to just do it because it's the right thing to do, which is some of the limits to the flexibility, but seems to be working so far. And we've seen even with individual ministerial responsibility that that's a convention that's adjusting, in the sense that we're seeing less resignations from the cabinet, even when they've been deemed unlawful and so forth. So it's flexible in that sense, in terms of which ones we accept and which ones we don't. But it seems to be working so far. So on to you, Duncan, for the next one.
Okay, I'll say a few people are saying that some of that's subjective about it working. I suppose individual ministerial responsibility is an interesting one, isn't it? So Ben Long said, Gavin. Yeah, I can't imagine which Gavin you're referring to, but not necessarily everyone exercises individual ministerial responsibility today. Maybe it's a convention that has had its day. Okay, shall we have a look at this big reveal? So some clues are going to come on the screen to something relating to UK Constitution. As each clue comes along, can you try and see if you can guess what is being referred to? It might well be that you'll change your mind as the clues come across. You might decide early on, think, I think it's something, and then as another clue comes up, you might decide that it's something else. That's fine. You can change your mind, but let's use the first to get it right. So it was established by legislation in 1998 following a referendum. Okay, so we're talking about something established by legislation in 1998 following a referendum. Anyone got any suggestions yet what we could be talking about? There's more than one possibility at this stage, so are people hanging back because they loads have come through here. Devolution, we might need to be slightly more specific than that, but there There had been a previous referendum in 1979. Seeing people talking about the human rights. So there wasn't a referendum on the Human Rights Act. We got the Scottish devolution, Welsh devolution. Who was the? Yeah, okay. Good Friday Agreement. The referendum, and by this referendum, I'm talking about the one in 1997, not the one in 1979, had a turnout of 50.22%. Is this going to change anything? Even the EU, that was a bit more recent than 98. Northern Irish devolution, creation of Scottish and Welsh assemblies, Scottish devolution, Scottish Parliament. The first election to this body was won by Labour with 37.6% of the vote. We've still got a pretty much now we're divided between Scottish and Welsh devolution. I wonder whether the turnout of the referendum might help decide which one we're talking about. Or it could be the Hartlepool Mayor. The first minister, or the first minister, was Alan Michael. Has this helped? The first minister of this thing was Alan Michael. And we know he was from Labour because we've had that right at my end. Any final guesses? Quite a few people have already got it. I think the first one was Rachel. I think it was Rachel Hitch, but she did do other guesses as well. So I'm not sure who was the first person who totally agreed on it. It was Welsh Assembly, Welsh Government, Welsh devolution. Lots of people getting there in the end. And the first few questions, obviously, it could have been Scotland or Northern Ireland as well. Okay, let's look at the next one then. So our first clue was that this was established following the findings of the Mackay Commission. Don't worry if you haven't heard about the Mackay Commission. The first clue is meant to be difficult. Some of you might have done, and some of you might know straight away. I don't think this is the Hartlepool Mayor. No, the expense scandal might relate to that. West Lothian question. Oh, West Lothian question, Harriet. That's an interesting thought. But what following that? This was in the Conservative Party's 2015 general election manifesto. You off, Isaac? Oh, Ben's gone for Evel. English votes for English laws. Brian's gone for Brexit. EU referendum. Good potential or possibility. There were related proposals in Labour and Liberal Democrat manifestos at the same election. Got English votes for English laws, the EU referendum, English votes for English laws, got a mixed bag there. It has been presented as an answer to the West Lothian question. Getting a nice mixed bag here, but some people have got the right answer, but I won't reveal which one it is yet. Which one of these is more likely to be a possible answer to the West Lothian question, the EL ones? This meant that the Conservatives maintained a majority for many votes between 2017 and 2019, even though they didn't have a majority at that point. It is, lots of people got it now, it is indeed English votes for English laws. So some, the Grand Committee of English parts. A few people asking what EVEL, English votes for English laws, is. Have a little Google of it and a bit of a read of it. It's an interesting piece of more recent constitutional reform. It's an evil question, absolutely. Okay.
It was good seeing the Scottish MPs. They did this big stunt where they were holding up signs saying "See no evil" and protesting against it. So
yeah,
it's upset a few people.
Well, you can see because an awful lot of votes potentially come under that category, and so then you've got quite a lot of MPs there. And there are issues to do with, well, what about the bits of devolution within other parts of the UK? What about, anyway, it's an interesting one. Let's have a look at this one. We're talking about a voting system, but we're still talking about component 2, not component 1. Although obviously we can make some synoptic links. So you might be talking about some constitutional issues that also, but you can also talk about voting systems at the same time. It was invented by the Labour MP, Dale Campbell-Savers. He was a Labour MP until sort of, well, I can remember him being an MP in the 90s. Can't remember quite when he stopped. We've got all the methods are coming through here. It is a preferential voting system. So the AVs are coming thick and fast. I can understand why you would do. Let's see if you change your mind. It has been used in the UK since 2000. Has AV been used in the UK since 2000? See no evil, talk, hear no evil, etc. We now got AV, AMS. Harriet. Oh, and a couple of people have suggested supplementary vote. A few people are suggesting that now. It is used to elect city mayors. Has that sorted that one out? Do we know it? A lot of people have suggested it now. The 2000, when it was first used, was the first London mayoral election, and it was supplementary vote. Well done, mayoral votes SV. So it links to our constitution because of devolution, English devolution, and city mayors, but you can make a nice synoptic link to voting systems and talk about the voting system that's used there and why it's used. Okay. Going to hand back over to Kira now for a few bubble quiz questions. Do you want to explain how a bubble quiz works, Kira?
Yeah, of course. Can't get enough of bubbles of coronavirus and now revisions. It's great. So for the bubble quiz, it's about, just like in your support bubbles, it's the answers could be that you're going to get a few questions and you need to think, what is the answer? Is it a collection of all four answers? Is it two questions? Two of the answers could be the correct answer as well. So it's one question, but there could be more than one correct answer, from anything between one answer to all four, or none as well. So just to make it really tricky for you. So here's the first question then. Which of these are sources of the British Constitution? So just put down all the correct answers or letters from the answers in the chat. Okay, okay, a few people have said all. Interesting. Everything. All four, yeah. Okay, brilliant. Nice, easy one to get you started. Yeah, it's the correct answer. Yeah, so it is all four of them. So as I said earlier, and well revised as well. So excellent. The Daily Mail is not a source of the Constitution, as much as they might think that they are the authority on that. But sorry about that. Okay, so the next question is, which of the constitutional reforms were introduced during Tony Blair's government? So just put down all the correct answers, or none if it's none. Okay, good. Okay, seeing most people are seeming to go for the consensus for 3 answers. Well done. Okay, excellent. Most of you seem to be getting this. It's not Z, I'm afraid. Okay, so the correct answers are the Scottish Parliament, human rights, and the removal of hereditary peers. The Fixed Term Parliament Act came about much later through the coalition government because they didn't want to have an early snap election. But it might not be around for much longer, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, so next question. Which of these are constitutional conventions? So going back to conventions, it's about what the traditional things that have been done. Okay, good. Oh. Might want to have a, yep. Okay, so well done. Well done, Tom's been quite consistent throughout. Isaac as well, brilliant as always. So the correct answer is A, B, and D. So these are all the conventions from the Constitution. Excellent.
Again, the length of a parliamentary term is obviously currently sorted by the Fixed Term Parliament Act again, which didn't used to be, but it is now.
Yeah, and that's statute law as well, so that's not
absolutely
fixed as well. So yeah, brilliant. Okay, so the last question then. Which of these are EU treaties? So again, putting in some history into this. Okay, well done. Seeing got a few correct answers coming through. Oh, you might want to check that for some of them. So it's definitely not A, because A is from the First World War, so it's not done by the EU. It predates the EU or the European Community. So the correct answer is the Treaty of Rome and the Maastricht Treaty. So, the Treaty of Rome was the beginnings of what we now call the EU, so a very small group of nations. And then the Maastricht Treaty is the further sort of politicization of the EU. So a lot of things to do with social policy, thinking about workers' rights, and those sorts of policies which many people were quite critical of because they argued it would be too much red tape, which is interesting now. Okay, so that's it from me then.
Some great answers there. I was really impressed. You're on fire. Oh, Jim, I think you're muted. There's silence from
Jim,
Towers.
you're on mute. Fantastic session.
Authority.
Sorry, Duncan. Apologies, I muted myself just whilst I did a bit of research because you put Kira on the spot with that tricky question about where the Magna Carta was signed.
Yeah,
which clearly wasn't scripted. So I've just done a bit of research. I've got a question for you, Duncan, which I think we need the answer to, which is when was the Magna Carta signed? Any ideas?
It was about 12:15.
It was, yeah. It's 12:10. 12:12. Close enough.
Okay. Right.
12:15. 12:15. Yeah, 12:15.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, Duncan, Kira, fantastic session. Do you enjoy it? I mean, what do you think to the answers that came through on the chat window there? Weren't they amazing?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, really good. Very impressive.
Shall we do this again?
Yeah.
Shall we pick another topic for next time? Kira, Duncan, what do you think we should do for the next one or two? Any thoughts?
Definitely. We were looking at possibly something on Parliament, maybe something on pressure groups or political parties. Got a few possibilities coming up over the next few weeks. If you've got some ideas, incidentally, in the audience, we'd love to hear from you if you want to consider some of the other topics and components. Obviously, some of you, when we look at things like the optional ideologies and US or global, obviously some of you will want to do some and some of you want to do others, and we can. That's not to say we can't do it, but have a look at the demand. Yes, a couple of people saying about comparative things and stuff, and I can totally see why you want to do that. If you've enjoyed this, please click the thumbs up and say like.
Don't forget, because Duncan and Kira are paid by the thumbs up that they get before the session ends. So please do not press that thumbs up button to save me some money, please.
I mean, I need to eat, guys. So
the little bell gives you notification of the next ones. Also, if we can't necessarily work out, in terms of what time we'll do it when you're back at school. But if you want to suggest some times in the window, obviously there are other subjects at other times as well. But we can try and work around it. Is this time okay? Yeah, maybe it is. We could do a lunch hour.
The lunchtime slots. Yeah. If politics grab lunch hour, then no other subject can have it, can they? So that might be an option.
Yeah,
I've got year 7 at this time, so we might have to move it.
Oh, right. Might have to rethink it.
Someone's got to teach me.
Kira, they can join in as well. There's nothing to stop year 7 from doing a bit of pressure groups and parties. Brilliant. Well, fantastic session. Many thanks to everyone who's taken 35 minutes of their day to join us live. Really appreciate that, as always. Don't forget, we've got some other subjects coming up this afternoon, and during the rest of this week, we've got economics starting soon. Sociology back with Duncan at 3:00. Geography, A-level geography at 4:30, and psychology, our first psychology session at 6:30. So if that's your subject, then you might want to join us for one of those. Hopefully be another really cracking session just like this one. So from Kira and Duncan and I, many thanks, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, cheers, guys. Thanks. Bye.